don't hear you. Oh, good. Evan, can you hear me? Evan. Oh, no, we're going to skip to Hillim today. Sorry, Evan.
Hey, you're loud and clear.
Oh, you hear me? Okay, good. So, well, let's skip the Hillim today. Sorry, just because it's a little bit, because I'm doing it over the phone. Everyone should say Hillim themselves. You shouldn't skip it, but can you record it on your computer and then send me the attachments and record and stop at the end of the Chumash and record it, stop at for Tanya, so I get it in 2 separate folders? Are you able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm recording it to the cloud now. Should I stop that?
Yeah, just leave it, I guess. It's easier because I have to figure out how to split it, but that's good. That's cool. Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. What a beautiful class we had yesterday. It was so nice to see everybody with us. Today, we're going to learn the 6th Aliyah Shishi of Parshas Re'eh as we continue our journey. And by the way, very, very important lesson in today's Chumash. Very important message. So I don't know if you can hear. I'm on the Bell Parkway here, or what are we on? The Outer Bridge Crossing, and a car cut off the bus, and the bus is really.
No, the bus is a mistake. Car did not cut off.
Car did not cut off the bus, but the bus.
Jewish driver bus.
It's a Jewish
bus
driver. He's misbehaving. Okay, that's what's going on here on the Outer Bridge Crossing. Okay, so anyway, today's Chumash is very important, my friends, and I'll tell you why. And he's going to tell you the importance about lending money, giving tzedakah to the poor people, and also lending as we continue the topic of financially helping out those who are destitute, those who need help. Now, you might say, well, I helped him once, I'm already done. Or you might say, and there's different reasons, and you'll see today why. Specifically in Judaism, there's a fear of lending money because in the sabbatical year, Shemitah, it's called in Hebrew, all your loans disappear. So a person might say, I'm not lending anybody money. Why would I lend somebody money? If the 7th year, sabbatical year will come, and then my loan will be canceled, and I'll never get the money back. And Moshe Rabbeinu, as he does so beautifully, literally addresses all the issues and the questions, and he will address this very issue of loaning money in today's Chumash. Very beautiful. So let's do it together. Miketz Sheva Shanim, at the end of 7 years, meaning, and Rashi points out something very important. We're not talking about, not everyone has their own 7 years. That's not the situation. If everyone could mute themselves just because I'm not able to mute, I'm not host right now, I'm doing it from the car. So everyone should mute themselves, it would be great. Okay, so at the end of 7 years, again, what do I mean by 7 years? Not everyone has their own 7 years. There's a calendar, there's a system, like Alec wants us to make for the oil trip. There's a system. And every 7 years is the Shemitah, is the sabbatical year. Every 7th year is a sabbatical year. The Miketz Sheva Shanim Paseh Shemitah, you should make a year of release, of remission, of loan. At the end of that 7 years, all loans are canceled. And he's going to explain in the next verse what happens to all loans. V'zeh dvar hashmita, and this is the manner of release, of how it works, that you relinquish. This is how it works. Shmoit kol baal mashayadai. You relinquish your claim. Anyone who has a claim that money is owed or other kinds of things are owed to another person, anyone who has some kind of like a document, I guess, that says this guy owes me this and that, when it comes to sabbatical year, the Shemitah year, this year actually coming up, that begins after Pesach. Besides, for all of us knowing that the farmers are not allowed to plow their field, in the 7th year, all loans are canceled, are void. That you have a claim against your fellow man. He's not allowed to demand payment from his friend, Bes Achav, and his brother. Hikara Shemitah, because it is declared a time of remission before the eternal, before Hashem. It's a very interesting idea that we have about called the sabbatical year. At the end of every 7 years, it begins after Rosh Hashanah. This year, we're going to have Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur very soon. It's coming up in a month. We'll begin in Eretz Yisrael. In all over the world, we get the idea of Shemitah, and it means if you have loans, and in about 30 days, all your loans are going to be canceled, the Torah says. What about a non-Jew? Does this apply? Is this a rule that applies to Jews or also to non-Jews? The Torah says in verse 3, as hanachri tigosh, you should, from the foreigner, you may extract this is a lot of mitzvahs apply only to the Jewish people. It is a mitzvah to get your money back from another person. Anybody else that's not part of the Jewish community is actually, I believe we want to say even that it's a mitzvah to collect the loan that was lent to that person. But if it's a loan to your brother, tashmei yadcha, it shall be released. So one of the ways I always explain this mitzvah, I don't know if it'll be helpful to you guys. It's like siblings, that's why we're not allowed to take interest. It's like it's uncomfortable when a sibling asks another sibling for a loan and he says, I'll give you a loan, but I'm going to charge you interest. You imagine how the parents look at it, they're very upset. So here too, there's a special rule regarding to the Jewish people, and that is that Hashem says any loan that the Jewish people have between each other is void, and you don't hold a claim against your fellow man anymore. All right, moving on to verse number 4. Evan, lift us up, lift the page up, please. Let's go to pasuk, verse number 4. Efes ki yeh b'lecha ki lo yeh b'cha evyon. However, there will be no poor people among you. That you'll need to have this loaning economy like our economy is today. Everything's built off loans. You will not have any poor. It doesn't even matter, he says, because you won't have any poor people among you. Now, Rashi right away says, we're going to actually learn in today's Chumash, at the end of today's Chumash, that there will always be poor people among the Jews. So there's actually almost looks like a contradiction between verse 4 and then in like 10 or 15 verses from now, it'll say there will never be a time where there won't be poor people among the Jews. And Rashi says, well, it depends, like every good Jewish answer. If it's a time that the Jewish people are serving Hashem as they should, there will not be any poor people. If it's not a time, then there will always exist poor people among the Jewish people. So anyway, he says, there won't anyway be, because when you're doing God's will, Evyon and a poor person. Now, the word Evyon, Rashi tells us here, oh, no, I'm sorry. We'll explain soon what an Evyon means in a little bit, because there's different levels of poor. And we're going to actually get into who do you give charity for. So it's actually going to come up in today's class. Interesting. But anyway, we'll get there soon. But there's not going to be any destitute people among you. Because Hashem will bench you. Hashem will bless you. So this whole loaning, all the laws of lending money that Hashem is giving us, won't even be relevant because you won't need to lend because everybody will have enough money. Because Hashem will bless you. But it's in the land that Hashem that God is giving to you, Nachla L'Risha as an inheritance. For you won't have these issues. You won't have a problem at all. Now, the word Evyon, which we're going to use in today's class, is actually somebody who's more poor than a poor person. So Oni is the Hebrew term used for regular and average poor person. And Evyon is someone that is needs anything, even more than the basics that a poor person needs. He needs help from every guest side and angle. So Hashem says that if you do the will, all these laws that we're discussing today about lending money and the requirements, it won't affect you because anyway, it won't be an issue. But if not, then there will be poor people among you. And if there's poor people among you, then you have to lend them money. Now he's saying when Hashem blesses you, there will be poor among the world. You will support them, but they will not need to support you. Okay, let's go on. However, only if you listen to the voice of Hashem, then you won't have poor people among you. To keep and to do all the mitzvahs, as I said, when I command you today, then you will. I want to share with you something interesting. It says, "Shamoya Tishma," listen, you will listen, and it's something beautiful, which based on a story I heard when I was in Ukraine the other day, is that listen. Rashi says there's a fascinating twist to explain it. If you listen to the small things, Hashem will grant you the opportunity to listen to more. So in life, like you could say, why is it so powerful? In life, you could say, it's a small mitzvah. Why do I need to do it? It's easy mitzvah for me to do it. It's a small, I don't really care about it. Like, for example, there's a rabbinic mitzvah. Like the example, the reason the story I heard was Baal Shem Tov could not fathom not washing his hands before praying mincha, even though it's only a rabbinic mitzvah. And what Rashi says is, if you're a person that takes the little mitzvah seriously, Hashem will grant you the opportunity, beautifully, that the big mitzvahs you'll give you then the opportunity to do the big mitzvah. So don't laugh at a small mitzvah and say, yeah, big deal. It's not so important. The opposite. If you want to do big things in life, do the small things, and Hashem will grant you to be the big things. It's a very beautiful message in today's Rashi here. Continuing on to verse number 6. Evan, lift us up. Get us to verse number 6, please. Thank you, Evan. Ki Hashem elekecha beirachecha. Why won't there be poor people among you? Because Hashem will bless you. Hashem, your God, will bless you. Kasher diber lach, like He spoke to you, which comes from a blessing, which we will learn later on. Beautiful blessings that Moshe Rabbeinu will repeat from Hashem, that Hashem gives the Jewish people. And you will lend to other nations. You will lend to the other nations of the world. Now, Rashi says interesting. He says, look, there's some people or banks that they borrow money from people and then they lend it to somebody else. So he's telling you here, Rashi says, that when you lend money to, I guess the Jews will be such a powerhouse that other countries will need a loan. We will lend the other countries, but you won't need to borrow. So it's not like the Jews are going to be a middleman, that they're going to borrow from China to lend money to America, whatever, and so on. But they're going to have so much that they're going to lend without needing to borrow. And you will also rule over many nations, and you won't have anybody ruling over you, because you also have a system that, look, you could be a ruler over small nations, and there's a bigger ruler over you, but Hashem will bless you. Very beautiful blessings there, that you will rule over nations, and no nation will rule over you. And again, because we keep the mitzvahs, we keep the small mitzvahs, and that brings tremendous blessings to the Jewish people. Verse 7. What happens if you have a poor person? And the term is important there, evyon. Evyon is a poor person that is very, very poor. Not just poor, but extremely crazy poor. So if you have a case with a person that is an evyon, and Rashi says here that when you're coming to give out charity to people in need, you should always give to the greatest need. So look around. When it comes time to giving, give it to the person that is in the greatest need. Okay? From one of your brothers. And he says that a sibling, and he actually says, like, sometimes you have a sibling from your mother or your father, you're responsible for both, but your first responsibility is your brother from your father before if you only have enough, right? Because it's limited funds. Who do you give? You give your brother, your father's son before your mother's son. That's your first more direct kind of responsibility. In your gates, and this is a very interesting, another very important mitzvah. Your requirement is to support the poor of your community before supporting people of other communities. So, right? People like to save dolphins in or whatever in Africa and stuff. Sometimes it could be funny. What about there's a poor guy, your next door neighbor? He needs help. You don't have, sometimes people could get so caught up in saving the elephants in Africa, which is something important, but there could be a guy next door who's starving. So he's telling you, the Torah is telling you that the poor, there's a system here, there's a hierarchy that Moshe Rabbeinu was laying down for us, that first of all, the greater poor, the Evyon comes first, the real poor person. Second of all, if it's a sibling, interestingly, the brother from your father is before the brother of your mother. Next thing is that the poor of your city, you are responsible for the poor of your city before another city. That Hashem's giving to you, and all the cities that God puts you in. Do not harden your hearts. Do not close your hearts. And do not close your hand from your brother who is destitute, whose brother who's in need. So very interesting here. It's interesting. He describes two things you should not do when denying charity to someone. Don't harden your heart and don't close your hand. And Rashi describes very interesting two personalities that the verse that Moshe Rabbeinu is trying to tell you about. He's saying there's some people, when it comes to giving charity, he's like really thinking it over. Does the guy deserve it? Does the guy not deserve it? Should I give him? He's actually in pain. He's suffering and deliberating. Should I give? Does the guy really deserve it? Right? I was actually dealing with a case recently. My brother's like, why are you thinking so much? Just give. The person's in need. Just give. Why you have to think so? So there is this personality of this person, and this is very interesting. What Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us that the poor person, stop thinking so much. Stop deliberating. Stop struggling so much if you should give or not. Don't harden your heart. That is the definition that Rashi says. Not hardening your heart means don't get too critical, and just help the person. And the other one is closing your hands. And Rashi describes very interesting another kind of personality is that some people open their hands and they close it right away. Okay, I guess the kind of thing like I want to give, and I can't give. So the Torah is fascinating. Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us these two kinds of personalities that we should make sure not to fall into the trap of the Yetzer Hara, the inclination. And then he finishes. Rashi says, explaining the verse, don't close your heart or your hands from your brother who's poor, because God forbid, if you do, you will become poor. You'll become his brother in poor. You'll join his club if you don't help him out. Therefore, make sure to help him out. Okay, let's continue. Verse 8, Evan, if you could keep on scrolling up. Thank you, Evan, for your help today. Open up your hand. Open. It says twice, open up your hand. Even many times. You can't say the guy coming again and again. No, you have to keep on helping the person. Tahavi tavitenu loy. And you should give him, you should lend him. And Rashi says, you know what? Some people do not want gifts, right? There are people that don't want gifts, but the guy's struggling. Then give it to him as a loan. Lend it to the person. If the person you see is too proud to take it as a gift, so no problem. So you don't want it as a gift, fine. You don't want tzedakah, I'll give it to you as a loan. And how much should you give him? Very interesting. Give him enough for his needs. You don't have to make him rich. Person shouldn't become rich off the tzedakah. Another very interesting rule Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us in tzedakah now. Asher, so doesn't have to get a 5-star, 5-star hotel. You have to give him enough, but he's missing. But how much is a person missing? It has a very interesting rule. How much does somebody need? Right? Does it need to be an iPhone? Does it need to be an Android? Just kidding. People are saying now, what is the limit to the amount of how much he needs? And he has a very fascinating rule. Asher yechzer loy. So give him what he's missing of relative to his missing, what he's missing. Rashi says very interesting here. It depends every person. In other words, it could be a guy who grew up with nothing. He doesn't need much, but somebody grew up with, a certain standard of living, and God forbid loses everything. He's uncomfortable, even though he has, you can't tell such a guy, okay, go live off beans and rice. I'm sorry, I had chicken once a week. Without doing that or whatever, you actually, the commandment of helping that person is not to make him wealthy, but enough to keep to his basic standards of his previous life. It could be, as Rashi describes here, a horse. If a guy had a means of transportation, you have to give him, maybe you don't have to give him the fanciest transportation, but you have to give him some kind of transportation. Or if you had a servant who helped him in his house, maybe someone had a cleaning lady or so on, you have to help the person get back to their basic, not to make them extra wealthy, but to give them back the lifestyle that they previous had. So beautiful, very interesting rules Moshe Rabbeinu is laying down here. And I love the last one. He says, give him everything asher yechzer loy that he is missing. And Rashi said, what did he say to give him? If a guy doesn't have a wife, a shidduch, part of this mitzvah is to get the guy married. So there's a responsibility on the community to provide people with charity, and if somebody needs a match, to get involved in making a shidduch is part of this mitzvah. Even though, and now this is just a joke, even though by the guy getting married, he might lose all his money. But anyway, yeah, that's part of the mitzvah of helping a person get married is part of the mitzvah here. Very interesting. Okay, continuing right along. Hishamar lecha, be very careful. Verse 9, pasuk tes. Peniya davarim levavcha. You start having thoughts in your heart. You start thinking different things in your heart. Hold on one second here. Unconstrained thoughts. Belial, that are like unconstrained. Lamer saying, and here's where the problem comes in. Karva shnasa shmita. The sabbatical year is coming. The shmita year is coming. That is going to release all loans. Your eyes will look begrudgingly at your brother. You want a loan? Oh no. In 2 years from now, in 1 year from now, or in 30 days from now, right? In about 34 days from now, if I give you a loan, it will be canceled. Now, no way is the guy who's able to give the loan going to give the loan. You're not going to give it to him. You're not going to give it to him now because, and the guy will say, guy will come over to you and show and say, listen, I need a loan. I need to buy food for my family. Can you give me a loan? You'll say, listen, I'm really sorry. The sabbatical year is coming in 34 days. If I give you $1,000, if I give you $10,000, it's over for me. I'm not going to get it back. Especially the loans are null and void, are canceled. The kara ilacha al Hashem, and then the poor man is going to call out to God and say, Hashem, please help me. You put me in this world that I should be the poor person, and I'm going over to the guy to get a loan to feed my family, whatever else I need. God, you made a rule that in the sabbatical year, that all loans are nullified. And there will be a sin on you. Now, so the guy will call out Hashem, and you'll be in trouble because you sinned because you don't want to give him the loan. Now, Rashi says, wait, is the guy sinning because the poor man cried to Hashem? The guy sinned even if the poor man doesn't cry out to Hashem. He sinned by not giving the guy a loan. That's what our whole parsha today is telling us. You got to give the guy a loan or give him tzedakah. So Rashi says, no, the guy sinned anyway, but the punishments will come quicker on the person because the poor man is crying out to Hashem. You get it? So that's the catch here, is that if he cries out to Hashem, you're in trouble anyway for doing it, for not giving the loan. But if he cries out to Hashem, that means Hashem is quicker to release the punishment that the person's getting for sinning. And Rashi, the verse goes on to say, verse 10, Nothing titain loy, give him, even 100 times. And don't let your heart be grieving by giving it to him. You want to know why not? I'll tell you why not. The Torah says, don't be cheap on him. It's because of this very reason that you give him. Because you're giving him, is the reason why God will bless you. B'chol masech in all your actions. So anything you'll do, you want it to be blessed. This is exactly why you're getting the blessing. B'chol meshlach yadecha, and in all your endeavors. Very beautiful the way Moshe Rabbeinu is laying it out for the Jewish people. That you're hurting yourself by not helping the poor person out, by not giving him the loan. It's because of this exact reason that Hashem's going to bless you. So you're silly. I don't want to give a loan because I don't want to lose my money. But you should know the whole reason that you're going to be blessed is because you're giving the guy the loan. And Rashi also adds and says, look, if a guy comes and says, I need a loan, and you say, yes, no problem, tell me what time, where you need it, where should I write the check out to? And then he comes back to you an hour later and says, look, I actually don't need the loan anymore. Thank God I worked it out. And you get the mitzvah. Just by telling the person that you'll give him the loan, you already get the mitzvah, even though the loan hasn't been done. Okay, let's continue along to verse 11. Evan, scroll us up, please. And we will move on to Pasuk 11, Yud Aleph. Because there will always be poor people. As long as the Jews are not perfect, and I guess most of life we aren't perfect, we're not doing all the mitzvahs as we should, there will always be poor people among the Jewish people. Al-Kain, and because of this, I'm commanding you, open your hands, even 100 times as we learned in the last Rashi. And Rashi says here, Lamar, saying, meaning this is for your own good. Hashem is giving us this mitzvah for our own good. Like someone told me the other day, it's the greatest gift if Hashem gives you the opportunity to give someone. You're lucky. Thank Hashem that you are able to help another person out. It's beautiful. Don't close your hand in your heart, but open it up. Open your hand to your brother, to the poor, to your brother who's poor, or he's destitute. That is in your land. Okay, so that is the next pasuk. Verse number 12. Now it goes into concludes today's chumash. I believe there's 2 more verses about the cases of slaves. So it's not the main section here, which we learned all about slavery. I believe it was in the book of Exodus. In the second book of the Torah, we had a lengthy discussion on this stuff and the details. But he's going to add a couple more details, which is why he repeats it, at least for 2 nuances that he wants to say, I believe. So the deal is that, slavery was part of life till, I don't know, not long ago, till 50, 100 years ago, the slavery was a very common thing. But Torah always protected the rights of slaves. That if God forbid someone was sold out, so and by the way, how would slavery be done? Now, it actually kind of makes sense in today's case that we're discussing in the case of slavery, which is that if somebody stole money or damaged something, stole money from another person and they can't repay them, unlike today's legal system, which the guy just whatever claims bankruptcy and nothing, in the Torah laws, no, you have to pay back. I'm sorry, I don't have money. Okay, so what do we do? Fine, so you're going to work for the guy that you stole the money from, no problem. So that is our case of a kind of healthy case of slavery. Is if you took money from someone else, you got to pay it back, and if you can't pay it back, now you got to do the time. What's the time? I'm not going to lock you in jail. How's that going to help the guy get back his money? No problem. You now are a slave of this person until you pay back the $100,000 that you stole. Instead of just locking the guy in jail, what benefit is there? So, however, there's still limitations even to that kind of a punishment. And as the famous one is the sabbatical year, you will go free. No matter what happens, you'll always go free in the sabbatical year. Another case of where an obligation is released and exempt. Okay, let's learn inside. If it is sold to you, and Rashi says, how is it sold to you? It's sold to you because the person stole, and now they're in court, and now they need to sell this guy as a slave. So the guy owes $100,000. They go on the market and they say, "Look, who needs a worker?" And we're going to sell this guy as a slave. So now he's going to work as a slave, and it could be a male slave or a female slave. Now, a female slave won't get sold. Bezdin would never do this to a woman. In other words, a male, if you stole, they're going to sell you as a slave. A female, Bezdin, Rashi tells us, would not sell a female. I guess it's not, you don't want to sell it's a worse condition. They wouldn't sell a woman as a slave. So how could a woman come as a slave? Again, we're not going to get into it now. Now is not the topic for discussion fully, but in a case a father had some rights to his daughter at the age, I don't know, like 11, 12 years old at that age, the father could allow his daughter to work for somebody else. Maybe back in the day, the guy had no money, couldn't afford it, and he needed to find something to do with his daughter, and he found another family that will take her, that she'll help out in their house, and she'll work there over there too. So if you have a manservant or a female servant, they can only work for you up to 6 years. They can only work for 6 years. Uvashana hashvias, and in the 7th year, you must set them free. Okay, so there's only a maximum time how long the sale. Even the guy sold $10 million. The maximum time that a person could be sold is up to 7 years. Now, and that's for a female and a male. It's not. I might have said before the sabbatical year. That I believe is wrong. It's not at the sabbatical year. Here, money goes out at the sabbatical year. This is automatically 7 years from whenever the time started. That is the rule regarding slaves. So that's the deal. Now, a girl can. A girl has another way that she can go at if her father sold her. And that is if she becomes, or let's see, she becomes a fully mature adult girl. At that point, she starts growing hair. That's indicating that she's now fully mature. Her body's fully mature. The girl can automatically go free from that person. Okay. Another thing we're going to learn is going to be gifts. That's going to be another novelty of why the Torah repeats the case of slaves. Let's go on. Verse 13. And when you send out your slave, do not send them out because they work for you. The guy owed $100,000. So now, good, go. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm done. Leave. No. Do not send them empty-handed. Don't send them empty-handed. You should surely provide for him. From your sheep, and from your threshing floor, and from your vats, from the winery. Anything Hashem has blessed you that has blessing in it, you have to
I think he's frozen.
He's probably on Virazano, that's why.
Evan, take over. Start teaching us.
I'm back. Sorry, guys. Okay. Okay, almost done. I believe we're almost done. Evan, are we done? Where's verse 14? Okay. Okay, verse 15. And don't forget ever that you were slaves in Egypt. And when God took you out of there, and Hashem redeemed you. And what kind of gifts did God give you? The most beautiful, clear gifts that Hashem give you when you left slavery. So when a person leaves slavery, gifts have to be provided to show that they're leaving with respect, I guess, and love, and so on. And God redeemed you. That's why I'm commanding you this thing. What happens if, interesting person, he doesn't want to leave? He's very excited. He likes being a slave. He loves working for this guy. He finds meaning and life in being this guy's schlepper, this guy's worker. And he likes working there. So what do you do? Very interesting rule. I thought you go out at the sabbatical year. Fine, not sabbatical year, the 7th year. We're going to let him free that he goes out at the 7th year after he started working. But this guy wants to stay. So what do you do? Verse 17. You take an awl, like a hammer and a nail, kind of like a hammer with a sharp end. You pierce a hole, an earring, like an earring, and make a hole in his ear. And it goes through till you put his ear next to the doorpost and you make a hole in it. And he stays for you forever, meaning until the Jubilee year. And so too with a woman servant, that if she wants to say, I'm sorry, the woman servant doesn't get an option. A girl is not allowed to stay past 7 years, even if she wants to. The boy can, but he can only stay till the Jubilee year. There's a Jubilee year besides the 7-year sabbatical system we have. We also have 7 times 7. Every 7 cycle of sabbatical years is what we call the Jubilee year after 49 years. And the 50 years year is called the Jubilee year. And that time, even if the guy wants to stay, I'm sorry, enough, you got to get out of the slavery job that you're in. A girl cannot go past, if I understand Rashi correctly, it cannot go past the 7-year cycle. She must leave in the 7th year. But the girl also needs to be given gifts, just like the male. The male servants equally need to be given beautiful gifts as a parting gift. Okay, Evan, let's go up. I think we're almost done. All right, verse 18, last verse. Do not be troubled when you send this guy out free. Because he worked for you for 6 years. And Hashem will bless you with all that you do. So you might not want to, this guy's a really good worker. Why would I let him go? And he says, no, the guy, you have to let him go. Hashem says, I'm sorry, 7 years and you must let him go. Now, Rashi is interesting. Rashi says a male servant works during the day and during the night. Well, we know what he does during the day. What's he doing during night? And we're saying that he can, if the master wants, the master can give him a non-Jewish woman servant that he has and tell the Jewish servant to have kids with a non-Jewish maidservant, and the kids will belong not to the father, but the kids will belong to the master. And now the master is like, oh, I really like this guy. He's very, very talented. This Jewish servant he has, I know he's going to leave. I have a job for him. I wanted to have kids together with my female non-Jewish maidservant, and those kids that will come from that will then belong to theirs. So the kind of Rashi thing, he used a double term reflecting service by day and service by night. Service by day is doing regular work. Service by night is if the master wants, he has to listen to the master and have kids so that those kids will belong to the master afterwards. And that is the end of today's Chumash. Any questions or comments from today's Chumash? Evan, you want to shut the screen? Yeah, thanks. Anyone have comments in today's Chumash?